The silence in my kitchen was deafening that Tuesday morning in October when I discovered the betrayal that would shatter my world into 1,000 pieces. There I was, Brenda Lawson, 64 years old, a woman who had spent nearly 4 decades of her life sacrificing everything for her family, about to uncover a secret so devastating it would make me question every relationship I held dear. My name is Brenda Lawson, and I live in a modest 2-bedroom house in Richmond, Virginia, the same house where I raised my son Stephen after his father abandoned us when the boy was only 12. For 26 years, I worked double shifts at the textile factory, saving every penny I could. I gave up dreams of traveling, of buying nice things, of even dating again, all so I could provide Stephen with the best education money could buy. I spent $127,000 of my life savings on his college tuition at Virginia Tech, money I had scraped together working overtime shifts that left my hands raw and my back aching. Stephen, my 38-year-old son, had always been the center of my universe. After his father left us with nothing but debt and broken promises, it became just Stephen and me against the world. I remember the countless nights I stayed awake helping him with homework, the sacrifices I made to buy him that first car when he turned 16, a used Honda Civic that cost me $8,500, money I had saved for my own much-needed dental work. But seeing his face light up was worth every penny and every sleepless night. That October morning started like any other. I was preparing for what I thought would be a quiet day when Stephen came by to visit, something that had become increasingly rare since he started dating Miranda 3 years ago. She was a marketing executive from a wealthy family in Richmond's West End, the kind of woman who wore designer clothes and spoke with the refined accent of someone who had never known financial struggle. From the moment I met her, I sensed she looked down on me, on our modest lifestyle, on the fact that I still clipped coupons and shopped at discount stores. Stephen seemed nervous that morning, fidgeting with his phone while I made him his favorite coffee, the same way I'd been making it since he was old enough to drink coffee. His hands trembled slightly as he checked his messages, and I noticed sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool autumn weather. Something was different about him, something that made my maternal instincts scream that trouble was coming. "Mom, I need to check something on my phone," he said, his voice tight with an anxiety I couldn't understand. As he scrolled through his photos, looking for what he claimed was a work document, I caught glimpses of images that made my blood run cold. There were photos of people in formal wear, of decorated tables, of what looked unmistakably like a wedding venue. Then I saw it, a photo that made time stand still. It was Stephen in a black tuxedo, standing next to Miranda in an elaborate white wedding dress that probably cost more than I made in 3 months. They were surrounded by family members I recognized, my sister Patricia, my brother Robert, even my elderly mother who I thought was too frail to travel. Everyone was there, smiling and celebrating, raising champagne glasses in what was clearly a wedding toast. Everyone, except me. My hands began to shake as the devastating reality crashed over me like a tidal wave. My only child, the boy I had sacrificed everything for, had gotten married without even telling me. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain I had ever experienced. But as Stephen quickly tried to swipe past the photos, I glimpsed something that made my heart stop entirely. The last photo in the series showed something that would haunt me forever. If you're watching this story and it's touching your heart, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories, and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time it is there. Your support means everything to someone like me who needs to share her truth. "Stephen Michael Lawson," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, using his full name the way I did when he was a child caught in a lie. "Show me that phone. Right now." The color drained from his face as he clutched his phone against his chest like a shield, but I had already seen enough to know that my worst nightmare had become reality. My son, my baby, who I had rocked to sleep during countless fever-filled nights, who I had cheered for at every baseball game, despite working 16-hour days, had excluded me from the most important day of his life. "Mom, I can explain," he started, but I cut him off with a look that could have frozen the James River in July. "Explain what? Explain how you got married and didn't even have the decency to tell me? Explain how every member of our family was there except the woman who gave birth to you? Explain how you could look me in the eye every Sunday dinner for the past month while planning a wedding I wasn't invited to? Stephen's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of a child who had been caught, not a man who felt genuine sorrow for his betrayal. Miranda thought. We thought it would be better this way. Smaller, more intimate. Smaller? I laughed, but it was the bitter laugh of a woman whose heart was breaking in real time. I saw at least 30 people in those photos, Stephen. Your Aunt Patricia was there. Your Uncle Robert flew in from Florida. Even your 89-year-old grandmother was there, the same woman who you claim is too fragile to leave the nursing home for Christmas dinner. He shifted uncomfortably, unable to meet my eyes. It's complicated, Mom. No, son. What's complicated is how you could throw away 38 years of love and sacrifice like it meant nothing. What's complicated is how you could let that woman turn you against the mother who worked herself to the bone to give you everything. The mention of Miranda struck a nerve. Stephen's face hardened in a way I had never seen before, and when he spoke, his voice carried a cruelty that felt like a knife to my chest. Maybe if you had tried to fit in better, if you had made more of an effort with Miranda's family, things would be different. Do you know how embarrassing it is to explain why my mother shops at thrift stores and clips coupons? Do you know what it's like when Miranda's parents ask about your career and I have to tell them you worked in a factory your whole life? Each word hit me like a physical blow. This was the child I had sacrificed my youth for, the boy I had protected from his father's abandonment, the young man I had sent to college by giving up every dream I ever had. And now he was ashamed of me, ashamed of the poverty that came from putting his needs before my own. I worked in that factory for 26 years to pay for your education, I said, my voice growing stronger despite the tears streaming down my face. I worked overtime every weekend so you could have music lessons and sports equipment and school trips. I gave you $127,000 for college, money I saved by eating cereal for dinner and wearing the same winter coat for 15 years. And that's exactly the problem, Stephen exploded, his true feelings finally erupting. You act like I owe you my entire life because of what you spent on me. Miranda's family doesn't guilt-trip her about money. They don't make her feel bad for having nice things or for wanting a different life. The cruelty in his voice was devastating, but what he said next would haunt me forever. Miranda said that having you at the wedding would be like bringing a reminder of everything we're trying to move away from. The poverty, the struggle, the embarrassment of where I came from. I felt my legs give out beneath me, and I had to grip the kitchen counter to keep from collapsing. This wasn't my son speaking. This was a stranger who had somehow taken his place, a man who had been poisoned against me by a woman who saw my love as weakness and my sacrifices as burdens. But even through my devastation, I remembered that last photo, the one he had tried so desperately to hide from me, and I realized that Stephen's betrayal, as crushing as it was, might not be the worst secret he was keeping. Stephen, I said quietly, there was one more photo on your phone. One you didn't want me to see. What was in that picture that has you so terrified? The fear that flashed across his face told me everything I needed to know. Whatever secret that final photo contained, it was bigger than a hidden wedding. And I was going to find out what it was, even if it destroyed what was left of my relationship with my son forever. Stephen's face went ashen as he realized I had seen more than he intended. His hands trembled as he clutched his phone, and I could see the panic building behind his eyes like storm clouds gathering before a hurricane. Whatever was in that final photo, it was something he never intended for me to discover. Give me the phone, Stephen, I demanded, my voice carrying the authority of a mother who had spent decades learning to read her child's deceptions. I've already seen enough to know you're hiding something bigger than just a wedding. Mom, please, you don't understand. I understand that my son has been lying to me for months, maybe years. I understand that you're ashamed of the woman who sacrificed everything for you. What I don't understand is what else you're hiding from me. With shaking hands, Stephen slowly turned his phone toward me, scrolling back to that final photo. What I saw made my knees buckle and my world tilt on its axis. It wasn't just a wedding photo. It was a family portrait, but not the family I expected to see. Standing next to Stephen and Miranda were two children I had never seen before. A little girl who appeared to be about 6 years old with Stephen's distinctive green eyes and dark hair, and a boy who looked to be around 8 with the same stubborn cowlick that had plagued Stephen throughout his childhood. They were dressed in matching formal wear, and the little girl was holding a small bouquet of flowers that clearly marked her as a flower girl. But it wasn't just the existence of these children that made my blood run cold. It was the date stamp on the photo. The wedding had taken place just 3 days earlier, on Saturday, October 21st, but the metadata on this particular photo showed it was taken 2 years ago at what appeared to be a family Christmas gathering. "Stephen," I whispered, my voice barely audible, "who are these children?" The silence stretched between us like a chasm, filled with all the unspoken truths that were finally demanding to be heard. When Stephen finally spoke, his voice was so quiet I had to strain to hear him. Those are my kids, Mom. Emma and Tyler." The world seemed to stop spinning. I felt like I was drowning in my own kitchen, gasping for air that wouldn't come. "Your kids? You have children? And you never told me I had grandchildren?" Tears were streaming down Stephen's face now, but I was too shocked to feel any sympathy for him. Miranda was pregnant when we first started dating. The kids, they're not biologically mine, but I've been their father figure for 3 years. We've been a family, and when Miranda and I decided to get married, we wanted to start fresh, clean slate. "A clean slate that didn't include your mother?" I asked, my voice rising with a combination of hurt and rage I had never experienced before. "You kept my grandchildren from me for 3 years? 3 years of birthdays and Christmas mornings and first days of school that I'll never get back? They're not really your grandchildren, Mom. They have their own grandmother on Miranda's side, and she's been wonderful to them. She takes them to Disney World and buys them expensive gifts and—" "Stop." The word came out like a gunshot. "Just stop talking before you say something we can't come back from." But Stephen, in his panic and desperation to justify his betrayal, couldn't stop himself. "You have to understand, Mom. Miranda's family has money. Real money. Her father owns 3 car dealerships, and her mother volunteers at the country club. They can give Emma and Tyler opportunities we never had. Private schools, summer camps in Europe, college funds that are already fully funded. And what does any of that have to do with keeping them from knowing their other grandmother?" Stephen's next words cut deeper than anything he had said before. "Miranda said it would be confusing for the kids to have a grandmother who lives in poverty. She said it might give them the wrong ideas about what success looks like." I stared at my son, this stranger who looked like the child I had raised, and felt something inside me break that would never heal. But even in my devastation, I noticed something else in that photo, something in the background that Stephen clearly hadn't intended for anyone to see. There, barely visible behind the happy family group, was a document on the kitchen counter. I couldn't make out all the words, but I could see enough to recognize legal letterhead and what appeared to be the word adoption in bold letters across the top. "Stephen," I said slowly, "is there something else you need to tell me? Something about adoption papers?" The terror that flashed across his face confirmed what I was beginning to suspect. This betrayal ran deeper than a secret wedding and hidden grandchildren. There was something else, something that would explain why Stephen had been so desperate to keep me away from his new family. And I was going to find out what it was, even if it cost me everything. Stephen's face crumbled as he realized I had spotted the adoption papers in the background of the photo. The last of his carefully constructed lies was about to come tumbling down, and we both knew it. The silence in my kitchen was deafening, broken only by the ticking of the old wall clock that had marked time through all the years I had spent raising him alone. "Mom," he whispered, "please sit down. There's more you need to know." I remained standing, my hands gripping the kitchen counter so tightly my knuckles were white. "More? How could there possibly be more, Stephen? You've hidden a wife, a wedding, and grandchildren from me. What else could you possibly have kept secret?" He took a shuddering breath, and when he spoke, his words hit me like a physical blow. "I legally adopted Emma and Tyler last month. Miranda and I, we wanted to make sure they would never have to deal with their biological father trying to come back into their lives. But to do that, we had to establish that our family was stable, unified, and appropriate." "Appropriate?" The word tasted bitter in my mouth. "What does that mean?" The social worker who handled the adoption case did a full family investigation. They interviewed Miranda's parents, looked at our financial situation, examined our living arrangements. Miranda was worried that if they knew about certain family members who might not meet their standards. I felt my heart stop beating. "You told the adoption agency that I was dead." Stephen's sob confirmed what I had already known in my gut. "We said you died in a car accident 2 years ago. Miranda thought it would be cleaner that way. No complicated family dynamics to explain. no questions about why the children had never met their paternal grandmother. The betrayal was so complete, so absolute, that I couldn't even process the full magnitude of what he was telling me. Not only had he erased me from his wedding, not only had he kept my grandchildren from me, but he had literally erased my existence from legal documents. In the eyes of the law, I was dead to those children. So when you were worried about me being embarrassing to Miranda's family, I said, my voice deadly calm, it wasn't just about social status. It was because I wasn't supposed to exist at all. Mom, you have to understand. I understand perfectly. I cut him off. I understand that you committed fraud. You lied on legal documents to a government agency. You falsified information in an adoption proceeding. Do you have any idea what you've done? Stephen's face went pale as the legal implications began to sink in. It's not fraud if it's just simplifying things. Simplifying? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Stephen, you committed perjury. You lied under oath about a material fact in a legal proceeding. If the adoption agency finds out, and they will find out, this could invalidate the entire adoption. Those children you claim to love so much could be taken away from you. The reality of what he had done was finally hitting him. But how would they find out? You're not going to tell them, are you? You wouldn't do that to Emma and Tyler. And there it was, the manipulation that Miranda had clearly taught him. Even now, caught in his web of lies, he was trying to make me complicit in his deception by using my love for grandchildren I had never been allowed to meet. Don't you dare use those children as emotional blackmail, I said. You're the one who put their adoption at risk, not me. You're the one who chose to build your new family on a foundation of lies. But even as I spoke, I could see Stephen's mind working, calculating. He wasn't showing remorse for what he had done to me. He was trying to figure out how to manage the situation, how to keep his lies from unraveling completely. Mom, I know you're hurt, and I'm sorry. But think about Emma and Tyler. They're innocent in all this. If you expose what we did, they're the ones who will suffer. They could end up back in the foster system, and their biological father. He's not a good man. He's violent, unstable. Miranda got them away from that situation, and now they're safe and loved and thriving. I felt a cold fury building inside me. He was still trying to manipulate me, still trying to make me the villain in a story where I was clearly the victim. But there was something else bothering me about his explanation, something that didn't add up. Stephen, I said slowly, if their biological father was so dangerous, why would the adoption agency need to believe I was dead? Wouldn't my presence as a loving grandmother actually strengthen your case? The flicker of panic in his eyes told me I had hit on something important. It's complicated, Mom. No, I said, my voice growing stronger. I don't think it is complicated at all. I think you're still lying to me. I think there's something else you haven't told me. Something about why it was so important to Miranda that I be completely erased from your lives. I pulled out my own phone and began typing. I think it's time I had a conversation with the adoption agency myself. Let's see how they feel about discovering that a supposedly dead grandmother has mysteriously returned to life. The terror on Stephen's face confirmed that I was on the right track. Whatever secret he was still keeping, it was big enough to destroy everything he had built with Miranda. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I might have some power in this situation. Wait! Stephen's voice cracked with desperation as I started dialing the adoption agency's number. Mom, please, there's something else. Something I haven't told you about the money. I paused, my finger hovering over the call button. What money? Stephen's whole body was shaking now, and sweat was beading on his forehead despite the cool October air coming through the kitchen window. The inheritance, Mom. When we told the adoption agency that you were dead, we also had to explain what happened to your assets. A chill ran down my spine. What assets, Stephen? You know I don't have money saved up. Everything I had went to your education and getting you started in life. That's what I told Miranda at first, but she said the adoption agency would find it suspicious that a woman your age didn't have any assets at all. So he swallowed hard, unable to meet my eyes. We told them you left me an inheritance of $150,000 that we used as a down payment on our new house in Miranda's neighborhood. The implications hit me like a freight train. You used my fake death to explain a down payment you couldn't otherwise afford? Stephen, where did that money actually come from? The silence stretched between us, heavy with the weight of secrets that were finally demanding to be revealed. When Stephen finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Miranda's father, he gave us the money, but there were conditions. He said he wanted to make sure his grandchildren were being raised in the right kind of environment, with the right kind of influences. He did a background check on our entire family, and when he found out about your financial situation, about the factory work, about the neighborhood you live in, he decided I wasn't good enough to be around his precious grandchildren. I finished for him. He said it would be better for everyone if we started fresh, clean break from the past. He offered to pay for the house, the wedding, everything, but only if we could guarantee that Emma and Tyler wouldn't be exposed to certain elements that might give them the wrong ideas about money and success. I stared at my son in disbelief. So you sold me. You literally sold your mother for a house down payment and a fancy wedding. It's not like that, Mom. It's exactly like that, I exploded, all my hurt and rage finally erupting. You took money from Miranda's father in exchange for erasing me from your life. And when the adoption paperwork required an explanation for how you could afford that house on your salary, you killed me off to cover your tracks. Stephen was crying openly now, but I felt no sympathy for him. You don't understand the pressure I was under. Miranda's family has standards, expectations. Her father owns 3 successful businesses. Her mother sits on charity boards. They live in a world where people judge you by your address, your car, the schools your children attend. And you wanted into that world badly enough to sacrifice your own mother? I wanted to give Emma and Tyler the life I never had, he shouted back. I wanted them to have every opportunity, every advantage. Miranda's father can pay for their college, set them up with internships at his companies, introduce them to the right people. He can give them a future that we could never provide. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. The same way I gave you every opportunity I could afford, the same way I worked double shifts and gave up everything so you could have a better life, and this is how you repay that sacrifice? Mom, please, you have to understand. I understand perfectly, I said, my voice cold as winter. I understand that you've committed fraud, perjury, and possibly money laundering. I understand that you've built your entire new life on a foundation of lies. And I understand that you're so terrified of losing Miranda's family's money that you'd rather I stayed dead than risk their disapproval. Stephen's face was ashen. What are you going to do? For the first time in this entire nightmare conversation, I felt a smile cross my face. Not a happy smile, but the smile of a woman who had finally found her power. I'm going to do exactly what any concerned citizen should do when they discover fraud has been committed. I'm going to call the adoption agency and inform them that reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated. Mom, no. Think about Emma and Tyler. I am thinking about them, I cut him off. I'm thinking about how they deserve to have a family built on truth, not lies. I'm thinking about how they deserve to know their real grandmother, not just the wealthy one who meets Miranda's approval. And I'm thinking about how they deserve better than parents who are willing to commit crimes to maintain their lifestyle. I started dialing again, but Stephen grabbed my wrist. Please, Mom, give me a chance to fix this. Let me talk to Miranda. Let me explain that we need to come clean. Maybe we can find a way to make this right without destroying everything. I looked into my son's eyes and saw something I hadn't seen since he was a small child caught in a lie, genuine fear and regret. Not just fear of consequences, but actual remorse for what he had done to me. You have 48 hours, I said finally. 48 hours to come clean to the adoption agency, to Miranda's father, and to those children about who I really am. If you don't, I will. And Stephen? I paused, making sure he understood the gravity of what I was about to say. After what you've done to me, those 48 hours are the last mercy you're going to get from me. As Stephen left my house that day, I knew our relationship would never be the same. But I also knew that for the first time in years, I wasn't going to let anyone, not my son, not his wife, not her wealthy family, treat me as if my love wasn't worth anything. The war for my grandchildren and my dignity was just beginning. The next morning, I was startled awake by aggressive pounding on my front door. Through the peephole, I saw Miranda standing on my porch, her perfectly styled blonde hair slightly disheveled, her usually pristine makeup smudged. She was clutching her designer purse like a weapon, and her face was twisted with a rage I had never seen from her before. When I opened the door, she pushed past me without invitation, her expensive heels clicking angrily against my modest linoleum floor. The woman who had always maintained a facade of polite indifference toward me had dropped her mask completely, and what I saw underneath was ugly. "How dare you?" she hissed, whirling around to face me. "How dare you threaten to destroy my family over your petty jealousy?" My petty jealousy? I kept my voice steady, despite the shock of seeing this new side of Miranda. "I think you have me confused with someone else. I'm the grandmother who wasn't even told she had grandchildren." "You're not their grandmother!" Miranda's voice rose to a shriek. "Those children have a grandmother. My mother, who loves them and provides for them and doesn't live in some pathetic little house that smells like poverty and broken dreams." The cruelty in her words was breathtaking, but I had dealt with bullies before. Working in a factory for 26 years had taught me how to stand up to people who thought they could intimidate me. "Sit down, Miranda," I said calmly. "If you want to have this conversation, we're going to have it properly." "I'm not sitting down in this dump," she spat, but I could see that my calm demeanor was throwing her off. She had expected me to cower, to be intimidated by her wealth and status. "Then you can leave," I replied simply. "But if you want to discuss your lies to the adoption agency, we do it on my terms." That stopped her cold. She hadn't expected me to know about the full extent of their deception. Slowly, she perched on the edge of my old sofa like she was afraid poverty might be contagious. "Stephen told me what you threatened," she said, her voice now low and dangerous. "Let me make something very clear to you, Brenda. Those children are mine. I rescued them from a life of trailer parks and food stamps. I gave them a real home, real opportunities, a real future. And I'll be damned if I let some bitter old woman destroy that because her feelings are hurt." "Rescued them?" I raised an eyebrow. "That's interesting. Stephen told me their biological father was violent and dangerous, but now you're saying you rescued them from poverty. Which story is true, Miranda?" A flicker of panic crossed her face, quickly replaced by more anger. "Both can be true." "Can they?" "Because I'm starting to think there's more fiction than fact in anything your family tells people." I leaned forward. "Tell me about their real father, Miranda. Tell me the truth this time." Miranda's composure cracked completely. "Fine. You want the truth? Their father isn't violent or dangerous. He's just poor. Like you. He works construction, lives in a one-bedroom apartment, drives a 15-year-old truck. He's a decent enough man, but he can't give Emma and Tyler what they deserve." The admission hung in the air between us like a confession. "So you lied about him being dangerous to justify taking his children away?" "I didn't take them away." Miranda's voice was getting shrill again. "He signed away his parental rights voluntarily. We offered him $25,000 to disappear from their lives forever, and he took it. He chose money over his own children." I felt sick to my stomach. "You bought those children. I saved them. Do you know what their lives were like before me? Walmart clothes, public school, birthday parties at McDonald's. I've given them everything: private tutors, piano lessons, equestrian training, summers in Martha's Vineyard. They speak French now, Brenda. French. Emma wants to be a ballerina, and I can make that happen. I can pay for the best schools, the best training. I can open doors for them that their biological parents never could. And all it cost was everyone who loved them before you came along," I said quietly. "Love?" Miranda laughed, but it was a harsh, ugly sound. "What kind of love keeps children trapped in poverty? What kind of love denies them opportunities because of some sentimental attachment to mediocrity?" I stared at this woman, this stranger who had somehow convinced my son that money was more important than family, that status was more valuable than truth, and felt a cold clarity settle over me. The same kind of love that kept Stephen fed and clothed and educated when his father abandoned us, I said. The same kind of love that worked double shifts so he could have music lessons and summer camps. The same kind of love that sacrificed everything so he could become the man you fell in love with. For just a moment, Miranda's mask slipped entirely, and I saw something that shocked me: fear. Not anger or indignation, but genuine terror. "You don't understand," she whispered. "My father has conditions for his financial support. The house, Stephen's job at my father's company, Emma and Tyler's trust funds. All of it depends on us maintaining certain standards. If he finds out about the lies, if he discovers that Stephen comes from this," she gestured around my modest home with disgust, "he'll cut us off completely. We'll lose everything." Finally, the truth was emerging. So this was never about protecting the children. This was about protecting your access to Daddy's money. Miranda's face hardened again. Those children need that money more than they need you. They need the security and opportunities it provides. What can you give them? Stories about working in a factory? Lessons about clipping coupons? I can give them the truth about where they came from. I can give them unconditional love that doesn't come with financial conditions. And I can give them a grandmother who won't lie to them about who they are. Miranda stood up abruptly. If you expose our situation to the adoption agency, I will make sure you never see those children. I have resources, Brenda. I have lawyers, investigators, connections. I can make your life very difficult. I stood up too, and for the first time since she had burst into my home, I smiled. Miranda, I've been poor my entire life. I've worked jobs that destroyed my body, lived in neighborhoods where people looked down on me, worn the same winter coat for 15 years because I couldn't afford a new one. You think you can make my life difficult? Honey, I've been living difficult while you were learning which fork to use at charity luncheons. The color drained from her face as she realized that her threats meant nothing to someone who had nothing left to lose. You have 47 hours left, I said, walking to the front door and opening it. 47 hours to decide whether you want to tell the truth voluntarily or have me tell it for you. As Miranda clicked her way back to her BMW, I knew the real battle was just beginning. But for the first time in this entire nightmare, I felt like I was fighting for something worth winning. The call came at exactly 6:47 a.m. on the second day of my ultimatum. I was sitting at my kitchen table, drinking coffee from my favorite chipped mug, the one Stephen had made me in a high school ceramics class that said, "World's Best Mom," in his awkward teenage handwriting. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mrs. Lawson? The voice was professional, female, with just a hint of confusion. This is Sarah Chen from Richmond Family Services, the agency that handled the adoption for Emma and Tyler Morrison. I'm calling because we've received some unusual information that requires immediate clarification. My heart started racing. Either Stephen had kept his word and come clean, or someone else had discovered their lies. What kind of information? We received a call yesterday from someone claiming to be the children's biological paternal grandmother. The caller stated that contrary to the information provided in the adoption file, she is very much alive and was deliberately excluded from the adoption process. I took a deep breath. Ms. Chen, I am Emma and Tyler's biological paternal grandmother. My name is Brenda Lawson, and yes, I am very much alive. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for what felt like eternity. When Ms. Chen spoke again, her voice was tight with professional concern. Mrs. Lawson, I need you to understand the gravity of what you're telling me. If what you're saying is true, then fraudulent information was provided to our agency during a legal proceeding. This is a very serious matter. I understand completely, I said. And I think you should also know that I have documentation proving my identity, my relationship to Stephen Lawson, and my continuous residence in Richmond. I've been here the entire time they claimed I was dead. Mrs. Lawson, I need you to come in today. Can you be here at 2 p.m.? And please bring any documentation you have. Birth certificates, utility bills, anything that proves your identity and residency. After I hung up, I felt a mixture of relief and terror. The truth was finally coming out, but I had no idea what the consequences would be for Emma and Tyler. Despite everything Miranda and Stephen had done to me, I genuinely cared about those children. They didn't deserve to be punished for their parents' lies. My phone rang again, almost immediately. This time it was Stephen, and his voice was panicked beyond anything I had ever heard from him. Mom, they know. The adoption agency knows everything. Miranda's father found out about the investigation, and he's furious. He's cutting off all financial support. We have 30 days to get out of the house. What about your job? I asked. Gone. He fired me this morning. Mom, we have nothing. No income, no savings, no way to support Emma and Tyler. The children, his voice broke. The children are asking questions we don't know how to answer. For a moment, my maternal instincts kicked in, and I felt sorry for my son. But then I remembered the cruelty in his voice when he told me I was an embarrassment, the coldness when he explained that I was supposed to be dead, and my sympathy hardened into something more complex. Stephen, you did this. You and Miranda made these choices. You decided that money was more important than family, that status was more valuable than truth. These are the consequences of your decisions. But what about Emma and Tyler? They're innocent in all this. Yes, they are, which is why I'm going to make you an offer. One time only, non-negotiable. I could hear Stephen holding his breath on the other end of the line. You and Miranda will tell those children the complete truth about who I am and what you did. You will apologize to them for lying about their family history. You will bring them to meet me properly, and you will never again try to keep me from having a relationship with them. Do this, and I will help you. Help us how? I may live in a modest house, Stephen, but I'm not destitute. I've been saving money again since you finished college. I have $47,000 in my savings account, money I was planning to leave to you in my will. I'm willing to help you get back on your feet, find a place to live, get by until you find new jobs, but only if you agree to my conditions. The silence stretched between us as Stephen processed what I was offering. Financial help in exchange for honest access to my grandchildren, the same grandchildren he had tried to erase me from knowing. Mom, he said finally, his voice thick with tears, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I let Miranda and her family convince me that love wasn't enough, that what you gave me growing up wasn't valuable because it didn't come with a trust fund. I was so wrong. I appreciate the apology, Stephen, but apologies don't repair trust. Actions do. What are you willing to do to make this right? Whatever you want. Anything. I just want my children to be safe and cared for, and I want to try to earn your forgiveness. Your children will be fine, but their lives are going to be very different from what Miranda promised them. They're going to learn what it means to live on a budget, to shop at discount stores, to understand that love doesn't come with a price tag. Are you and Miranda prepared for that reality? Miranda, Stephen's voice trailed off. Miranda left this morning. She packed her bags and went to stay with her parents. She said she couldn't handle the humiliation of losing everything. She said she never signed up to be poor. The information hit me like a physical blow, but not in the way I expected. Instead of satisfaction that Miranda was finally out of our lives, I felt genuine sadness for those children. Whatever her faults, Miranda had been the only mother Emma and Tyler had known for 3 years. Stephen, those children just lost the woman they call Mom. Do you understand how traumatic this is going to be for them? I know, he whispered. I know I've destroyed everything. I know I've hurt you and them and probably ruined their lives forever. But Mom, I'm begging you, help me figure out how to put the pieces back together. That afternoon, as I sat in the Family Services office with documentation proving my very living existence, I made a decision that would change all of our lives. I was going to save those children, not just from their current situation, but from the lies that had defined their lives. I was going to teach them that real love doesn't come with conditions, that family doesn't require a certain income level to be worthy, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is tell the truth, even when it costs you everything. But first, I was going to have to rebuild my relationship with a son who had thrown me away and win the trust of grandchildren who had been taught I never existed. The hardest battles were still ahead of us. 3 days later, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, changing clothes for the 4th time. What did you wear to meet grandchildren who had been told you were dead? How did you present yourself to children who had been raised to believe that love without money wasn't really love at all? I settled on my best church dress, a simple navy blue outfit I had bought for Stephen's high school graduation, and the pearl earrings my own mother had given me when I turned 16. They weren't expensive pearls, but they had been in our family for 3 generations. Today felt like a day for family heirlooms. Stephen had called that morning to confirm they were coming. His voice was different now, humbled, exhausted, but also relieved. The weight of carrying so many lies for so long seemed to have finally lifted from his shoulders, even if it meant facing the consequences. Mom, he had said, I need you to know that Emma and Tyler are scared. They don't understand why Miranda left, why we had to move out of the big house, why everything in their lives is changing. I've tried to explain about you, but it's confusing for them. What exactly did you tell them? The truth, that I had lied about you being dead because I was ashamed of not being wealthy like Miranda's family. That you've been here the whole time, loving them from a distance, wanting to know them. Tyler asked why you never sent birthday cards if you loved them, and his voice broke. I had to tell him that I threw away every card and gift you tried to send them. My heart clenched. You threw them away? Miranda made me. Every Christmas, every birthday for the past 3 years, you sent packages to our old address. I had to intercept them and throw them away. The children never knew. I had to sit down. For 3 years, I had been faithfully sending birthday cards and Christmas gifts to an address I found through a private investigator, hoping against hope that somehow my love would reach those children. I had spent hundreds of dollars I couldn't really afford on toys and clothes and books, writing cards that said, "From Grandma Brenda," and praying they would somehow understand that they had family who cared about them. "Stephen," I whispered, "do you have any idea what you've done? Not just to me, but to them? They could have known they had another grandmother who loved them. They could have had birthday cards and Christmas presents and someone else in their corner when things got difficult." "I know, Mom, I know, and I'll never forgive myself for it." Now, as I waited for their car to pull up in my driveway, I tried to prepare myself for meeting children who had every reason to be suspicious of adults and their promises of love. When they finally arrived, my first glimpse of Emma and Tyler through the front window made my breath catch in my throat. Emma, 6 years old with Stephen's green eyes and serious expression, was clutching a worn stuffed rabbit that looked like it had been loved nearly to pieces. Tyler, 8, had that same stubborn cowlick that had plagued Stephen throughout his childhood, and he was holding his little sister's free hand protectively. They looked small and lost standing on my front porch, these children who had been dressed in designer clothes and taken to Martha's Vineyard just weeks ago. Today they were wearing Target outfits that didn't quite fit properly, and the contrast broke my heart. I opened the door before Stephen could knock, and for a moment we all just stood there looking at each other, the grandmother who wasn't supposed to exist, and the grandchildren who had been kept from her. "Hi," I said softly. "I'm your Grandma Brenda." Emma whispered something to Tyler that I couldn't hear, and he nodded seriously before speaking for both of them. "Daddy says you're not really dead. He says he lied about that because he was embarrassed of you being poor." The blunt honesty of children is sometimes more brutal than adult cruelty. "That's right," I said. "I've been here the whole time, wishing I could meet you." "Why didn't you just come find us anyway?" Tyler asked, his 8-year-old logic cutting straight to the heart of the matter. Stephen started to interrupt, but I held up my hand. This conversation needed to happen between me and them. "Because I didn't know where you lived, and when I tried to send you birthday cards and Christmas presents, they never reached you. I didn't know that your daddy was throwing them away." Emma's eyes widened. "You sent us presents?" "Every birthday and every Christmas for 3 years. I have pictures of everything I sent, if you'd like to see them." "Can we see them now?" Tyler asked, and for the first time, I heard genuine interest in his voice instead of wariness. I led them into my living room, the same living room Miranda had looked at with such disgust just days before, and pulled out a photo album I had kept with pictures of every gift I had purchased for them. As they flipped through pages showing toys and books and clothes I had carefully chosen for children I had never met, I watched their faces change from confusion to something that looked like wonder. "You really bought all this for us?" Emma asked, her small finger tracing the picture of a ballet costume I had sent for her 4th birthday. "I did. I may not have much money, but I've been saving up all this time to buy things for my grandchildren. Every time I saw something I thought you might like, I would put a little money aside until I could afford it." Tyler looked up from the album. "Mama Miranda always said grandparents who really love you buy expensive presents. She said her mom loved us more because she could take us to Disney World." The casual cruelty of what Miranda had taught these children made me want to cry, but I kept my voice steady. "Tyler, love isn't measured by how much money someone spends on you. Love is measured by how much someone thinks about you, worries about you, hopes for your happiness. I've thought about you and Emma every single day for 3 years. But you've never met us before," Emma pointed out with 6-year-old logic. "That's true, but I knew you existed, and I knew you were my grandchildren, and that was enough to make me love you. Love doesn't require you to know someone perfectly. Sometimes it just requires you to know that they're yours." Stephen had been quietly watching this exchange from the doorway, and I could see tears streaming down his face. "Kids," he said softly, "would you like to see Grandma Brenda's house? She can show you the room that used to be my bedroom when I was growing up." As we toured my modest home, so different from the mansion they had lived in with Miranda, I watched Tyler and Emma begin to relax. They examined my collection of ceramic angels, asked questions about the photos on my refrigerator, and marveled at my old sewing machine. "Do you know how to make clothes?" Emma asked, her eyes wide with interest. "I do. I made most of your daddy's clothes when he was growing up. Would you like me to teach you sometime? Could you make clothes for my rabbit? She held up the worn, stuffed animal. His name is Buttons, and he doesn't have very many outfits. As I knelt down to examine Buttons and discuss possible wardrobe options with my granddaughter, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, complete and perfect happiness. These children, who had been taught that love required a certain bank balance, were beginning to understand that the best gifts sometimes cost nothing at all. The healing was going to take time, but for the first time since this nightmare began, I believed it was possible. 6 months later, I was awakened not by an alarm clock or my own restless thoughts, but by the sound of children's laughter drifting up from my kitchen. It was a Saturday morning in April, and Tyler and Emma were downstairs making pancakes with Stephen, a weekly tradition we had established as part of our new normal. The transformation in all of our lives had been remarkable, though not without its challenges. Stephen had found work as a junior accountant at a local firm, a significant step down from his position at Miranda's father's company, but honest work that he had earned through his own qualifications rather than family connections. We were living together in my house now, the 3 generations under one roof, while Stephen saved money for a place of his own. It hadn't been easy. Emma had cried for Miranda every night for the first month, and Tyler had acted out in school as he processed the upheaval in his life. There had been difficult conversations about money, about why they couldn't have some of the things they had grown accustomed to, about why people sometimes lie even when they love you. But there had been beautiful moments too. Emma had learned to sew and had created an entire wardrobe for Buttons the rabbit, each tiny outfit more elaborate than the last. Tyler had discovered my collection of classic novels and was working his way through Treasure Island with the dedication of a scholar. And Stephen, my Stephen, was coming back to me, day by day, as he remembered who he had been before Miranda's family convinced him that love wasn't enough. The legal situation had been resolved more easily than anyone expected. The adoption agency, faced with clear evidence of fraud, could have invalidated the entire adoption. But Emma and Tyler's biological father, a decent man named Mike who worked construction, had been surprisingly understanding when everything came to light. "Look," he had said when we all met at the family services office, "I signed away my rights because I thought it was what was best for them. Miranda's family had resources I couldn't provide, but if they're not going to be with that family anyway, and if Stephen is willing to be a real father to them," he had shrugged, "the adoption can stand. They know him as their dad now. I don't want to disrupt their lives any more than they already have been." He had asked for only one thing in return: the right to send birthday and Christmas cards and perhaps occasional visits as they got older. It was more than reasonable, and Stephen had agreed immediately. Miranda, on the other hand, had disappeared from our lives entirely. She had filed for divorce and relinquished any claim to the children, choosing to start fresh rather than deal with the complexities of a blended family that didn't come with financial guarantees. Her absence had hurt Emma more than Tyler, but children are resilient, and slowly, the wound was healing. This morning, as I made my way downstairs in my robe and slippers, I found my family exactly where I expected them. Tyler standing on a kitchen chair to flip pancakes, Emma carefully setting the table with my everyday dishes, and Stephen supervising the chaos with the patient smile of a man who had finally learned what was truly important. "Good morning, Grandma," Emma called out, running over to hug my legs. "We're making heart-shaped pancakes because Tyler says you need extra love on Saturdays." "Is that what Tyler says?" I asked, ruffling my grandson's hair. "Well, Tyler is a very smart boy." "Grandma Brenda," Tyler said seriously, "I need to ask you something important." "What's that, sweetheart?" "My friend Jake at school says his grandmother has a lot of money and she buys him video games and takes him to fancy restaurants. He says that's how you know a grandmother really loves you." Tyler paused, studying my face carefully. "But you don't have a lot of money and you love us anyway." So I told Jake he was wrong about how love works. My heart swelled with pride. "What did you tell him about how love really works?" "I told him love is when someone thinks about you all the time, even when you're not there. I told him love is when someone saves up money to buy you presents, even when they don't have much money to save. I told him love is when someone teaches you how to make things with your hands and reads you stories and makes you feel safe when you're scared." Stephen stopped stirring the pancake batter and looked at me with tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said quietly. "I'm sorry I forgot what you taught me about love. I'm sorry I let other people convince me that what we had wasn't enough. Oh, my dear boy, I said, moving to hug him tightly. We all make mistakes. What matters is that we learn from them and do better going forward. Emma tugged on my nightgown. Grandma, are we poor? It was a question I had been expecting, and I had thought carefully about how to answer it. We don't have as much money as some people, Emma, but we have everything we need, and we have each other, and that makes us rich in the ways that really matter. Good, she said pragmatically, because Tyler and me decided that being rich in love is better than being rich in money anyway. As we sat around my small kitchen table that morning, eating heart-shaped pancakes off my mismatched plates, I looked at my family. My son, who had lost his way but found his way back. My grandchildren, who were learning that security comes from love rather than bank accounts. Myself, at 64 years old, finally getting to be the grandmother I had always wanted to be, and I felt wealthy beyond measure. The house Miranda had scorned as too small and too modest was filled with laughter and learning and the kind of love that doesn't require a trust fund to sustain it. Stephen was teaching the children about budgeting by letting them help plan our grocery shopping. I was teaching them about creativity by showing them how to turn secondhand clothes into treasures. And they were teaching all of us about resilience by adapting to their new circumstances with the remarkable flexibility of childhood. We had lost a lot in the past year: money, status, the illusion of financial security. But we had gained something more valuable: the knowledge that our family could survive anything as long as we held on to each other and refused to let anyone convince us that our love wasn't enough. 1 year later, I stood in my backyard watching Emma twirl in the butterfly costume I had sewn for her 8th birthday party. It wasn't an elaborate affair, just a few friends from her new school, homemade cake, and games that cost nothing but imagination. But the joy on her face was worth more than any expensive celebration could have provided. Tyler, now 9, was leading a treasure hunt I had designed around our modest yard, his natural leadership abilities shining as he helped the younger children follow the clues. The boy who had once been destined for elite private schools was thriving in our neighborhood public school, where teachers appreciated his curiosity and creativity rather than his family's bank balance. Stephen approached me, carrying the pitcher of homemade lemonade we had prepared together that morning. At 39 years old, my son looked younger than he had in years. The stress lines around his eyes had softened, and there was a peace about him that I hadn't seen since before Miranda entered our lives. Mom, he said quietly, I need you to know something. I need you to know that this year has been the best year of my life since I was a child. I raised my eyebrows in surprise. Better than when you were living in that big house with all those expensive things? So much better, he said with conviction. Do you know what I realized? I spent 3 years trying to prove I was worthy of Miranda's family's money, and I never once felt like I belonged. But here, in your house, wearing clothes from Target and eating meals we planned around grocery store sales, I feel like myself again. It had been a difficult year financially. Stephen's salary as a junior accountant was a fraction of what he had earned at Miranda's father's company. We shopped at discount stores, clipped coupons, and made careful decisions about every expenditure. But we had also discovered the satisfaction of building a life based on our own efforts rather than someone else's largesse. And the children, Stephen continued. Look at them. Really look at them. I watched Tyler patiently helping Emma's friend solve a puzzle, and Emma sharing her birthday cookies with a shy little girl who had been too nervous to join the other games. These were children who were learning empathy, generosity, and resilience, qualities that money couldn't buy and privilege often couldn't teach. They're happier, I observed, more confident in some ways. They're real, Stephen said. When they lived with Miranda, everything was about appearance, about impressing other people, about maintaining status. Emma was taking ballet lessons she hated because Miranda thought it was refined. Tyler was in tennis lessons because that's what wealthy children do. They were performing their lives instead of living them. And now? Now Emma wants to learn guitar because she loves music. Tyler wants to join the school newspaper because he loves writing. They make friends based on who they like rather than who has the right address or the right parents. They're becoming themselves. As if to illustrate his point, Emma ran over to us, her butterfly wings slightly askew and chocolate frosting smudged on her cheek. Grandma Brenda, Daddy, come see. Tyler found a caterpillar and we think it might turn into a real butterfly. We followed her to the corner of the yard where Tyler was kneeling beside a small garden I had helped them plant. The garden had been Emma's idea. She wanted to grow flowers that would attract butterflies, and Tyler had designed the layout with the precision of an engineer. "Look," Tyler said reverently, pointing to a small green caterpillar making its way across a milkweed leaf. "Mrs. Peterson at school says if we take good care of the garden, we might see it transform. She says transformation is one of nature's greatest miracles." Transformation, I repeated thoughtfully. That's a good word for what's happened to our family this year. "What do you mean?" Emma asked, settling beside me in the grass with the unconscious trust of a child who knew she was completely loved. "Well," I said, "a year ago, we were all living in different worlds. Daddy was pretending to be someone he wasn't. You and Tyler were being taught that love required money. And I was alone in this house, missing grandchildren I wasn't allowed to know." "That was bad," Emma said matter-of-factly. "It was very bad," I agreed. "But sometimes when something bad happens, it forces us to change in ways that end up being wonderful, like a caterpillar that has to go through a difficult time in its cocoon before it becomes a butterfly." Tyler, wise beyond his years, nodded thoughtfully. "So you're saying that Daddy losing his job and Miranda leaving and us finding out about all the lies was like being in a cocoon?" "Exactly. And now we've emerged as a real family, one that doesn't need anyone else's approval or money to be happy together." As the party wound down and children began to be picked up by their parents, I reflected on the journey that had brought us to this moment. The discovery of Stephen's secret wedding had been devastating, but it had also been necessary. Without it, we might have continued living in a world built on lies, keeping our distance from each other, never discovering the strength of our authentic bond. Miranda's departure, traumatic as it had been for the children initially, had freed them to become who they truly were, rather than who she thought they should be. Stephen's job loss had humbled him, but also liberated him from the crushing pressure of trying to maintain a lifestyle based on deception. And my own journey from heartbreak to healing had taught me that love, real love, doesn't require permission from anyone else to exist and flourish. That evening, after the dishes were washed and the children were asleep, Stephen and I sat on my front porch drinking tea and watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. "Mom," he said suddenly, "I want you to know that I've started a college fund for Emma and Tyler." "That's wonderful, sweetheart, but you don't have to—" "I want to," he interrupted. "But not the kind of fund Miranda's family would have created. Not money that comes with conditions or expectations about who they should become. Just money to give them choices, opportunities to pursue whatever dreams turn out to be theirs." "How much have you managed to save?" I asked. $57 so far," he said with a laugh. "It's not much, but it's honest money, earned through my own work, saved through our own sacrifices. Every dollar in that account represents our commitment to their future. $57 earned with love is worth more than $57,000 that comes with strings attached," I said. "That's what you taught me," Stephen replied. "That's what you've always tried to teach me, and I'm sorry it took me so long to understand." As we sat in comfortable silence, I thought about the letter I had received just that week, a letter from Miranda's divorce attorney, finalizing the end of her legal ties to our family. There had been a time when such a letter would have filled me with bitterness, but now I felt only sadness for what she had given up, and gratitude for what she had inadvertently given back to me. "Do you ever regret it?" Stephen asked, as if reading my thoughts. "Do you ever regret forcing the truth to come out even though it cost Emma and Tyler their comfortable lifestyle?" I considered the question seriously before answering. "Stephen, look at those children now compared to who they were a year ago. Really look at them. Are they less happy? Less secure? Less loved?" "No," he admitted. "They're more of all those things. Then I have no regrets. None at all." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, I made a silent promise to those children sleeping safely in my house that I would spend the rest of my life proving that love without conditions is the greatest gift anyone can receive, and that family built on truth, no matter how humble, is stronger than any mansion built on lies. The wedding I never knew about had led to the life I never knew I could have, and that, I realized, was the greatest transformation of all. Thank you for joining me on this journey of heartbreak, betrayal, and ultimate redemption. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories of families overcoming impossible odds. Most importantly, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time it is there. Knowing that people all around the world are listening to these stories of resilience and hope means everything to someone like me. Remember, love doesn't require a bank account. Family doesn't require perfection. And sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is the truth, even when it's painful. Until next time, hold your loved ones close and never let anyone convince you that your love isn't enough exactly as it is.